Chapter 910. We'll let you decide, in case you try to say we're abusing our power, Edward said coldly. Wilbur looked at Sharon with a smile. The easier the better. I really don't want to use my brain here. We'll stick to Sigbo then. That's the easiest game there is, Sharon said with a smile. Wilbur nodded in agreement, and so did Edward and Jesse. The two men were hoping to drain this guy of his money in the quickest way possible. They were going to have him begging for their mercy, sobbing at their feet as they humiliated him all they wanted. Sharon then said, "All right. I'm sure we all know the rules here in the VIP lounge. All players must start with at least $100 million in chips, and the casino takes 5% as commission." Wilbur said nothing, as casinos taking commissions from chips was more than normal. Of course, Edward and Jesse knew this as well. Sharon then said, "Sir, you may proceed as you now have $120 million in chips. How about you two gentlemen?" She smiled politely at Edward and Jesse. Edward raised an eyebrow. "Do you think we can't afford the minimum requirement?" "Of course not." Sharon smiled. "We've verified both your identities before, and you definitely have $100 million limit that can be raised to $500 million if you wish. You just need to sign a contract." "Hurry up then. I'm not a very patient person," Edward said boastfully. Sharon nodded with a smile, clapping her hands. Two contracts were brought over at once. Edward and Jesse signed them without a second glance, tossing the contracts back. Sharon picked them up and glanced at them, before turning around. "Get each of these two gentlemen $500 million worth of chips." The eagle-eyed man walked out of the door and clapped his hands. Very soon, the chips were brought in and placed in front of Edward and Jesse. Sharon spoke up after that. "There shall be no banker as you're gambling against each other. Bets start at $10 million, and you win however much you bet. However, you can't bet more than your opponents." Everyone remained silent. Just then, a dice jar was brought over. Sharon placed it in front of her. "I shall be shaking the dice. Our casino has always been fair and just, and I'm sure you can all trust me." "Cut the crap and get on with it already," Jesse said impatiently. Sharon did not seem to mind, smiling as she said, "Please place your bets." Wilbur glanced at the two men before pushing all of his chips forward. "Big!" Tiff wailed in despair internally. He was betting on a big again, all in two. This man was out of his mind. Did the consequences not matter to him in the slightest at all? Sharon looked at Edward and Jesse. $120 million on small, both men said. It was clear that they were doing this entirely out of spite now. Both men could very well just bet half of what Wilbur had put down, but they were too blinded by rage to even consider it. All they wanted was to defeat this man in the fastest way possible. Sharon smiled. All bets confirmed. She shook the dice jar 3 times, placing it on the table and opening it. Edward and Jesse stared daggers at the jar. Wilbur smirked at the look on their faces. He was honestly not feeling any pressure at all. Tiff, however, was shaking uncontrollably at this point. No one had ever seen $100 million bet here before. 3, 4, 6, 13. Big, Sharon announced clearly.